Hello, Rosa. Welcome. Thank you for being
Hi,
here.
thank you so much for inviting me.
Okay, Rosa. Well, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been schooling, homeschooling, tell me a little bit about you.
Okay. Well, my name is Rosa, and my husband and I have four kids. Camila is 12, Alessia is 10, Lucas is 8 years old, and the baby is 15 months, Mateo.
Mhm.
And we have been homeschooling since we really started in 2020. But we decided in 2019, in December 2019, that we were going to start homeschooling. It took us probably 3 years to jump into homeschooling. So we were thinking about it since roughly 2017. And everything came because I am a PA in oncology and hematology, and my husband is a PA in family medicine. And we were working full time since the kids were very, very little. My kids have been in daycare, in school, and aftercare, everything. And, when you have your kids away from you for so long, it is very difficult because you don't have enough connection with them. They grew up apart from you. They learn everything from the people that is around them for 8, 10 hours a day. And and even though you are, the mom and the dad, it's difficult. The connection is a little bit lost. And I was sensing that really bad. And I knew that God wanted a change from us, but I had no clue. I had no idea what to do, what to change, because the only thing I knew is that these countries made for two, that two have to work, two have to, help each other, and kids have to go to school, and that's it. I didn't know any different. So many years ago, even before I even think about homeschooling, when my daughter was recently born um, in 2012, um, my husband has a friend that actually homeschool her kids. They have 7 kids. And when I was introduced to this couple, I was like, these people is totally crazy. I mean, these ladies abusing these kids, keeping them at home. No, I'm telling you, I was like, what is this? This is totally crazy. And of course, I just pushed that away from my mind. That was something that I would never do in my life.
I wonder
Um,
if that's what they think about us.
yeah, no, for sure, that's what they think about us. So little by little, when I was praying about the change that I felt in my heart that God was asking us for, um, we started going to a couples meeting in the church um, that is called Matrimonios Transformados here in San Edward. And this couple homeschool. But the subjects of the meetings were not homeschooling, were just things about marriage. But the lady, in one of the talks, she was talking about how homeschooling really changed her life. And and everything started because she saw how stressful it was to take the kids to school in the morning and just take them out of, putting everybody in the car at
Yeah, I
7 o'clock in
was
the morning, and the screaming and the hassle. And she used to see her neighbor very quiet, very calm, gardening with their kids outside, going for walks. And she was like, the neighbor never tell her anything, but she said that she was evangelizing her
Mhm.
with her state of life
Yeah,
without
just
even saying a
watching.
word. Exactly. So And she said many, many things in her talk that it really stirred my heart.
Mm.
But the funny thing is that it really, at that time, it bothered me, whatever she said. When I came home and I was talking with my husband, I was like, oh, you know what? She thinks that she's the best mom ever just because she's at home with her kids. So, what is left for us?
So sad.
We that has the, we have to work, we have to go to work, and there's nothing we can do, and now she's a better mom just because she stays at home, a stay-at-home mom, blah blah blah. So, and the time passed, and I was thinking, why bother me so much, right? Why I can't stop thinking about her and what she does and blah blah blah. I would never do that. I don't like homeschooling. I don't think that is right for the kids, blah blah blah.
Mm.
So I kept, praying and praying and praying about it. And then I used to work until 5. So, and my kids were in aftercare. So what I did, I reduced my work hours until 2 o'clock so I could go and pick them up from school so they would not stay in aftercare. And that was the first change. So working until 2, being away from my kids only the time that they were in school. And that was great. That was fantastic. It brought a lot of change on the dynamic of our house. And I was happy, but I wasn't happy enough. I felt that there was more to change, more to be done, but I had no idea what that change was. So I kept praying. I remember at that time I signed up for adoration to the Blessed Sacrament to go every Monday for an hour, and I had to go with the kids. I had no option. So I used to go with the kids, and my kids were very, very little. I only had at that time I had the three big ones, and
Mhm.
they were very little. And I used to go with them a whole hour of adoration. They will
Oh.
scream and they will run and they will do everything. And the people would look at me like, you are, you know, with these kids. But I had other people that will come and will say, that's fantastic that you're bringing your kids to adoration, congratulations, this and that. And so you know what? And, funny story, every Monday, I will make an excuse to myself so I don't have to go and deal with the kids in adoration. But every time I will say, okay, we have to go to adoration. Not even one time my kids said no. Not even one time. And when you teach them that from little, they really learn what is to be in adoration with the Lord. And that is so important and that is so powerful. But
Wow.
we don't know. We don't realize because we think that they are very little, that they don't understand, that they're gonna bother other people that is praying in silence. No, God love kids, God love the babies in adoration, and we have to take them. And that's the way we teach them how to go to the Lord. And that time that I was in adoration for a few months, going 1 hour every week, um, we received so many blessings, and I received in prayer, you know, all the changes that I have to do in my house. And in my prayer was just put in front of me the people that can show me the way, and I'll follow. And I started meeting more and more homeschooling people. And I was like, that's not something that I want. And I'll push it away. No, that's not something that I want. And I'll push it away. We'll go to a park and my kids will
The
start playing with a kid.
homeschoolers.
And then it was a homeschooling kid. I will go to a restaurant and my kids will start talking with somebody, in the other table. That was a homeschooling family. And things like that all the time, more and more and more, until one day I just started researching what homeschooling was, and I just started falling in love of everything that I was reading, and
Yeah, like
everything that
your
it
mind started
involves.
like opening like to all these.
Exactly. But it was a transition of many, many months, probably, like I told you, probably at least a year and a half for me to start saying, okay, let me see what it is.
That's such a
And
beautiful
then
testimony.
and then after that, we had to fix our finances, right? Because it's
Yes, the
not
other
like, okay, I'm
detail.
gonna stop, I'm gonna stop working, I'm gonna go homeschool, bye. No, because we were used to live with two salaries, and you have to go from two salaries to one salary. And that was also a big, big change. And but by the
That's a
grace of
good
God,
point
we were
because a
able
lot of
to do it.
moms that might feel the desire to homeschool are always like, I wish I could do, well, I've heard this several times. I wish I could do homeschool, but I have to work, so not,
Exactly.
but there's maybe ways, that it can
There,
happen,
there
right?
are many ways. I remember when I was researching about homeschooling, and I saw in a blog, and probably this is a little extreme, but for me, it was like very, very impactful. Um, this was a single mom. She was a nurse, and she will work nights, so she will homeschool her kids during the day. And I
Wow.
was like, wow, that for me was like, wow. It was really a
Wish you
wow.
could homeschool, yeah.
And I saw it on a blog when I was researching, and I saw so many moms that used to work on weekends or afternoons, and they will manage in one way or another to keep their kids at home. And so prayer has a lot to do with this,
Yeah.
because you really have to ask God what He wants from your family. And
Mm.
not only that, how open are you to change? Because sometimes the changes take you to away from your comfort level.
Mm. Yeah.
And you have to be willing to leave your comfort level to meet the Lord wherever He wants you to be. And like I told you at the beginning, it was a 3 years, yeah, at least 3 years we spent, in all these changes,
Mm.
uh, realizing that we will like maybe homeschooling, then how we're going to do with the finances. And many things happened during that time. Um, and by the grace of God, I am able still to work. I am still working, but I only work part time, very little. But in a way, I can keep myself in the medical field, which is very nice, because when you don't practice, you lose it, because in the medical field, things change all the time,
Yeah.
and it's important to be up to date,
Mhm.
updated with all the changes. And especially in my field, in hematology oncology, things change all the time, new medications, new treatments, new things.
Wow.
And by the grace of God, I am able to still work, but my husband and I are very aware that if one day this doesn't work anymore, if my boss says, okay, I cannot have you part-time anymore, this is not working, I'll just stay home and that's it.
Mhm.
I mean, we are ready for that,
Yeah.
because that can happen at any point in time.
And
And
now
you
that
have
you
to be
guys have
very.
been homeschooling now for several years, right?
I have been homeschooling, yeah, since, well, like I told you, we decided in 2019. And in 2019, I already had decided what curriculum I was going to start, and I already bought all the stuff that I needed. So I was doing things in advance to start in 2020. And in March 2020, COVID hit.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
it was like, whoa. But thank God I already had everything. I didn't have to get crazy. What are we going to do now? With all the craziness that was going on at that time, I thank God everything was done already. So He had the plan from the beginning. He knew what was going to happen. And, He put all the pieces in place. And yeah, I remember in December 2019, we sent a letter to the school of my kids, because you have to do the registration in advance for the following year. And I sent a letter in December telling them that that was it, that we were now going back the following year. And that's the way we started homeschooling. And it's been 4 years now, 4 or 5 years. And the only thing I regret that I didn't start before, but God has a plan for everything. And I think we needed, that transition little by little. And my kids are very happy. We are very happy. We try to evaluate every year.
Mhm.
Like at the end of the year, we ask ourselves, is this good enough for us? Are the kids happy? Are they learning? Are we happy? And if everything is fine, then okay, let's continue another year. Because I have heard many, many families that, oh yeah, we're gonna homeschool all our life. And then things
Yeah,
change and you always have to be open to any change because unfortunately, life happen and sometimes you have to adjust.
that's true.
So,
Mhm.
mhm,
Yeah, I think that's where where you say about prayer is always like has to be the top on the list for homeschooling,
yes,
right? In
yes, it
regards to
has
the
to be the
diet
first thing.
or in regards to each year analyzing everything. So
Exactly.
that's
And
such a beautiful.
every day is important to start in prayer.
Yes.
I have noticed many, many times that we don't start in prayer. And the day that we don't start in prayer, just things go wild. When you start in prayer and you put, Jesus in the first place, everything flows better. It doesn't mean that you are not going to have problems, that you are not going to have, bumps. But I don't know. I think the grace of the day is just completely different when you start in prayer. And, it's a working process every day, because every day is different. Every day is difficult. And when you have little ones, sometimes things can get chaotic, and especially when you have babies and toddlers. But
Yeah.
at the end, you see the graces, definitely.
Yes. Thank you, Rosa. That was one beautiful. I didn't know all those little details about your testimony.
Yes,
I love that
yes.
though.
It was quite
Everyone
a
has like a
trip.
story of how they started homeschooling. Everyone
Exactly.
has
And
like,
it's
I think that's the beautiful part. Like
and
that.
it's beautiful to hear, yeah, how everybody comes to the conclusion that
Uh-huh.
they want to homeschool. But I think the common denominator is that God steers
Yeah.
something in your heart and
Yes.
calls you to do
Yes.
something like that. Because I don't think, I mean, this is a calling. Definitely, I think it's a vocation. Um,
Yeah, I
it's not
always
for
say that it
everybody.
doesn't have to be for everyone. Anyone
It
can
doesn't
do
have
it,
to
but
be for
it would
everybody.
be good if they feel that God is calling them to that, right?
Correct. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Well, Rosa, speaking of having good days and bad days in homeschool, one of the topics I really wanted to touch with you is talking about burning out in homeschool. I know this is a topic that is very common,
Yes.
because again, we're changing our lifestyle, and even though we give every day to God, there's going to be those days that require more sacrifice.
Yeah.
Mothers are always giving their love, and their time and everything for their children. And now homeschooling, you're like, you're full time, depending on how the life, you're if you're working a little bit hours or a lot,
Yeah.
or if you just, or I don't know, it depends. Every homeschool home is different. But still,
Yeah.
you're still sacrificing so much, right?
Yes.
How do we handle the mothering and homeschool that you would advise? And also, like, how can we be joyful again, right? Because I think that's the key, to be joyful and peaceful mothers while we're homeschooling, not
Yeah.
lose, right?
It is difficult, and we have good days and bad days and better days. But one thing that I can tell you, um, and it's so amazing, but it just happened today. Um, we had a good day, but towards the end of the day, I was very, very stressful, very, very, very stressful. And when my husband came from work, um, I just handled everything to him and I said, okay, you take care. I just need 5 minutes for me. And I left and I went to the Blessed Sacrament.
Mm,
And because I felt that I wasn't being my best.
mm,
Okay. So I went to the Blessed Sacrament, and we have those days between work and homeschooling and parenting because you have to educate your kids. It's not just teaching them school, it's just teaching them about life, and you're all day every hour with them, and sometimes it could be very stressful, especially when they want to play, when they don't listen, when they don't follow, um, and beside that you have to cook, you have to keep the house you know in one piece, and you are just being pulled in so many directions that it's very difficult to to keep on going with a smile in your face sometimes. So I just went to the Blessed Sacrament today and I just sat down and I couldn't concentrate. I mean, my mind was just thinking about 100 different things. And I just started saying, Jesus, I need you. Jesus, I need you. Jesus, I need you. Jesus, I need you. And I just repeated so many times, to calm down, to calm down, and it was magical. I was able, to calm down and I started praying and I came back being a totally different person. When I came back home, I was another mom, not the same one that left. But I'm glad that I left instead of just staying here and being not my best. So you're going back to what we were talking.
mm,
Prayer has to be the
yeah,
number one on the list. And sometimes it's difficult because we don't have time, but we have to make the time.
yeah,
I don't like when sometimes people tells you, oh, don't be so hard on yourself. You
mm,
have no time and it's okay if you don't have time to pray. No, no, no. That's not okay. You have to make time for prayer because if you don't give the priority to God, nothing else is gonna fall in place. Everything is gonna be falling apart. Um, the more you pray, the more you put God in the first place, the better the things are gonna end up being. At the beginning, you may not see it, but in the long run, you're gonna see that if you put God first, everything else is gonna fall in the place it has to be. So that's the first thing, prayer. And then is burned out is something that is very, very real. At the beginning, I didn't think that it was actually real until I experienced it myself and I
that's
heard
true.
other moms.
Yeah. I didn't think I
I
could
mean,
like feel like
yeah, you
I
don't
don't
believe
know
it until you
myself.
go to, yes, exactly. But many times I have heard that it's very important to managing the school part very professionally. And what I mean by that is that it's important to have a schedule. It's important to plan what you want to do um, ahead of time, because then the kids can see how serious you are with it, and they will understand and get serious with it too. If every day is like, okay, no, we're not going to do this. Oh, yeah, we're not going to do that, we need some kind of a structure. At the same time, one of the beauties of homeschooling is that you're flexible, right? And
Yeah,
and one day if you don't want to do school, you don't do school. You just
yeah, like
skip the
if I
day
was
and you
sick
go to
that
park.
day or
Exactly. And you just go to park. But or you just go to eat ice cream. But overall you have to have a structure, and the kids have to they have to see that you actually have a structure, so they will follow. I think a structure is important for the kids. and also for yourself, because it gives you peace of mind knowing that you have a plan, right, in
Rosa,
place.
in a parentheses, like, what if, like, for example, you just had a baby, like, and you feel like that structure has been so lost?
Well,
I know went
and
through that a little bit.
I can relate that because for the last 2 years have been very, very different. I'll say very chaotic.
It changes.
First, because of the pregnancy, I was very sick at the beginning of the pregnancy, and it was so hard to do schooling. But you do what you can, because you have to have in mind that we are teaching our kids not only math and language art and science and history. We are teaching our kids something much more important, which is life itself. And for example, just to give you an example, um, right before I got pregnant last time, my father-in-law passed away, but he was very sick for a year and a half. He had cancer. And, you know, I was at home with the kids. They didn't live with us, but they live very, very close by. And he had to go to radiation every day at 12. So I was the one, I volunteered myself to take him every day because everybody else was obviously working. So, and I had to go with the kids. I had no option. So one day I put them in the car. We picked them. We went to pick him up. We drove him to radiation. He received his treatment. We had to wait in the car while he was inside, and then we'll, take him back to his house and then come back home. But all that will take us probably 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours.
Wow.
And the first day it was okay. The second day it was okay. The third day they started complaining.
Yeah.
Um, Again, and we have to be in the car, and we have to wait in the car, and they get very anxious in the car, and I get aggravated too for being in the car with them, and they get boring, and and that day, we sat down and I just explained to them in detail what was happening and how important it was, a work of mercy, right? To take him to his treatment because he was Jesus for us and we were being Jesus for him. And believe me, after we had the conversation, and they were little, especially Lucas. Lucas now is 8. At that time, Lucas was probably 5,
Mhm. Yeah.
and and he
Yeah, they want to be
understood
like,
very well.
mhm.
Exactly, and he understood very well. And since that day, they never complained again. It was a total of like 20 days that we had to do that. Stop whatever we were doing and just go and pick him up. And they were doing it happily because now they understood that he was being Jesus for us. We were helping Jesus and we were being Jesus for him. And those things we are teaching to our kids, not only school. And in life with the babies is the same thing. We're raising babies and everybody has to cooperate. And, sometimes right now, like Camila is my oldest, sometimes she takes care of Mateo so I can do school with Lucas.
Mhm.
So, all those things, sometimes it can be crazy and you want just a dynamic to be totally different. But you know what? Just it is what it is. And one day they're going to look back and they're going to say, oh, do you remember when we used to do this and
Yeah,
when
we're
my
gonna
mom
laugh
used to do
about it.
that? We're going to laugh about it, even though going through that is very, very difficult and sometimes painful.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but it's worth it. Everything, everything is worth it.
Good detail.
So don't get discouraged. It's just, we have seasons like we were talking at the beginning, different seasons, and we just have to go through it.
Yeah.
with the best we can. And even though sometimes you feel that you are not doing enough, as long as you are doing what God wants you to do, He will fill up the gaps. I have a very good friend. Um, she's older than me. She can be my mom. And after shortly after I had Mateo, I was very, very stressed out. And I went to talk to her one day, and I was like, "Oh, I feel so stressed out. I think I'm not giving to my kids anything because I'm so tired. I'm always tired. I am breastfeeding at night. During the day, I have no energy. We are barely schooling." And you know what she said? She said something that, is here in my brain and I'll never let it go. She said, "Listen, as long as you teach them every day something about God, you don't worry.
Mhm.
God will fill the gaps. But you just make sure that every day, even if you don't do school, even if you don't do math, even if you don't do anything, you teach them something valuable about God. And
Mhm.
that's it. And that is exactly what I was doing. Even if we couldn't do school one day, I'll pray and I'll say, God, you have to fill out the gaps.
Yeah.
And little by little, you
Yeah.
don't realize, but everything, start falling in place again. And now, Mateo is 15 months and we are in much better shape than before. and and it's fine. Nothing has happened. I mean, sometimes we get stressed out for things that are not that bad after all, you
And I
know?
think the hard seasons are beautiful because como que we rebuild ourselves, right?
Yes.
We rebuild. I think that's the way I've been feeling after I had Andrew, our last one. I feel like, okay, like how do I rebuild like this this everything changed. It's not gonna be what it was. We're in a new season now. How do I rebuild ourselves? Like how can I get like my happiness and my joy, my peace, and transmit that again to my children? Because every time I wasn't that person, that mother, like I would have like go to sleep crying, you know?
Yeah,
And I think
exactly.
that regardless of like homeschool mothering,
That's
you
part,
know?
that's part of parenting. I think everybody goes through that, even if you homeschool or not.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
is something that every parent goes through.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
it's not true if one parent come and tell you, "Oh no, I never fight with my kids.
yeah,
We're always
exactly.
happy." That's not true.
That we're always and for me, that was frustrating because I was like, I always pictured myself as being that peaceful, joyful mother all the time. And then when realizing at some point that I wasn't being that anymore, like I've been slowly getting back to trying to be that mother again or having my child say something that I was like, wow, like that's what I transmitted to her, and I always break my heart. But
Exactly.
it's
Or
learning
when you say something that you never thought you were be able
to say, yeah.
to
Mhm.
say or to tell to your kid. And you know what? But even that is important. I think that even that, those situations are very, very important and very, very powerful because it gives the chance to say, "I'm sorry,"
Mhm.
and to teach our kids that we are not perfect, that we also go through a lot, and sometimes we lose it, and it's okay to lose it, and we know how to say I'm sorry. And that is something that my husband and I have learned, through all these years. Every time something happened, well, I don't have any problem to say I'm sorry. And I think when you as a parent are willing to say, "You know what, I lost it, I scream and I shouldn't scream, or I said this and I didn't feel it. It was just, the way, it came out because I was mad." They learn also how important it is to say, "I'm sorry." And I
Yeah.
think it's a teaching moment.
Yeah.
It's not just what happened, it's what you do with what happened,
Mhm.
right? So I think those moments are powerful because it allowed us to grow as a family, to to be able to say that you're sorry, and to
Yeah.
teach your kids how important it is to say I am sorry. Not only because I'm telling you, okay, it's, tell sorry to your sister or tell sorry to your brother. No, you are modeling as a parent what is to say you're sorry. Hmm.
Yeah, and even as an adult, I'm gonna make mistakes. And I think I've been saying a lot of I'm sorry's lately.
It's
Um,
fine.
we have a word now, a new word that we use, start over. First, we used it between me and my husband, like when we get in a fight or something. Um, sometimes there's just no, at that time, when you're upset, there's no like, you're not gonna solve the problem right away. Like I see this way and you saw that way, and so we're like, can we just start over? Like let's just let it go. And that
Exactly.
we're like, okay, that's like our little word. And then we've been teaching the kids that too. And then the other day we had like this thing with Mila, and she did something she wasn't supposed to do, my daughter. And she's like, can we start over? And then we're like, we kind of had to. So we're like,
You can't
okay,
say no.
fine. But it was
Yeah,
good.
you
I
can't say
guess
no.
she caught on to that, just letting it go. Okay, so we have prayer for burnout. Any other
Yes.
ones that you advise? I know,
Yeah, well,
we
keeping
do
the structure, right? Keeping, certain kind of a
structure.
structure.
Um,
Very important to try to avoid to be outside of the house when it's during the school hours when you don't need it.
mhm.
As much as possible, right? As much as possible to try, to be at home the time that you need
To
to
do
to
school.
to do school. Exactly. Um, Another thing is very important to teach the kids to work independently. My oldest two daughters are very, very independent, and sometimes I feel bad because I feel like I'm not doing anything because they work by themselves. They just ask me things here and there, but most of the things they do it, by themselves. With Lucas, the little one, I have to be with him present all the time. I think it's also because boys are different than girls. I mean, girls tend to be more independent, I guess. um, but to build that independent work is important because the more independent they are, the more proficiency the more proficient that they're gonna be, and it's just so rewarding for themselves at the end, to be independent, to do the work by themselves. And that takes away also a little bit of the heavy weight that you have in your shoulders because if you teach them to work independently little by little, it's less that you have to do, um, or monitor at the same time when you have, several kids, when you have many kids. Um, and they feel wonderful when they can figure it out things on their own. So, it's very rewarding. Um, Another thing is try to avoid multitasking. It is very difficult for the mom to multitask, to
Words.
not multitask, because there are many things to be taken care of in a house. Like you have to cook, uh, the clothes have to be washed, and the house has to be clean. And anyway, it's very difficult not to multitask. But try to multitask. You know, the least possible,
Mhm,
not to put so many things in your plate. And that's something that for me personally is very difficult
mhm,
because I want to do it all. And if they ask me something, I want to be able to do it. And if somebody invites us somewhere, I always want to go. And, I'm putting more and more and more and more things in my plate. And one time I heard a veteran homeschooling mom that says, whenever you're going to put something in your homeschooling,
mhm,
be aware that there's something that has to go. You cannot keep putting. Like if you have one curriculum and you have one spine, right? But you want to add many things,
mhm,
You can add anything you want, but you have to be mindful that probably the following year, if you want to add something else, then you have to take something away, because otherwise you're putting more, 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 more. And no, because you're putting more, the kids are learning more.
Mhm.
You're overwhelming the system. And sometimes less is better,
Yes.
because it's very important. Um, in terms of multitasking, also, be careful with the sports, because sometimes, in the extracurriculum activities, sometimes we can fall in putting the kids in so many things because we have time, right? Because we have more time
Yeah, that's a
than
good
the
one, sports, because sometimes when
sports.
we're homeschooling, we feel like, okay, we want to have them in other activities, right? So they can socialize, so they can get energy out and everything.
Mhm.
So finding that balance, because usually sports require many days sometimes.
Exactly. And sometimes we just want to put the kids in so many things, music, baseball, and and taekwondo, and here and there, and it's nice, and extracurricular activities are fantastic, but they also take away something that is very important, that is family time. And that is something that has to be very, very, very important. And you have to be very protective is about your family time. Because if you don't share time as a family, then, I mean, what is the purpose really of homeschooling is not only give them, a very a very good education in terms of schooling, also a very good education in terms of values, of faith, but also the bonding between the family, between the siblings, between the parents, between the whole family. The bonding is very, very important. And we have to be very protective of our family time, because many times, and I have learned this lately, that even good things, because you know in homeschooling everything looks good, all the curriculums are good,
Yeah, all of
all
them.
the everything we see, we just want to add because everything seems so good, and this is good, and this is better, and this is even beautiful, so you want to add it all. But you know what, sometimes even the evil one, you know he just shows you all these beautiful things, so you get distracted from
Mhm.
your core. And you have to be very mindful what is your core. Everything can be very beautiful, but it doesn't mean that you have to do it all. You have to protect your family time. That is very, very important.
No, that's beautiful.
So, yeah, avoiding multitasking. And I think those are the main
Yeah.
things.
And then I think
Um,
I liked one that you mentioned once when we were together in the group. Um,
mhm.
if we can have a little like, if our husband wants to gift us something, if instead of a dinner, maybe he could gift us like someone coming to clean the house
Oh,
or the
yes, yes,
laundry
that's very
or
important.
maybe
Yeah.
Instacart.
Yeah, managing the expectations of yourself.
Mhm.
Like for me, and like I told you before, it has been very difficult for many years, pay to somebody, pay somebody to do something that I can do, which is no, because I don't want to spend money on that, but I think that that money can go to something else.
Yes.
And it has been very hard for me just to get help at home. But we got to the point that, I understood that. I mean, it was just way too much for us. And I said us because my husband helps tremendously at home. He does a lot here. And and now we have somebody that come and help us with the cleaning um twice a month. It's not even every week. I mean, it's only twice a month, and that has taken away a lot of weight from us. It helps a lot. So, sometimes we have to think a little bit outside of the box, and that really helps a lot. And for example, sometimes, babysitter, sometimes it's good to have a babysitter, and because you need time for yourself, you need time for your husband, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be every day, but at least once in a while, that is something, I mean, in my experience, I think we need it. We need it. And
Awesome.
if you are, in a position that instead of spending money in one thing, you can put it, in the cleaning, that will take away a
Yeah.
lot of weight from your from
I
your
know we did
shoulders.
Instacart for a season because I was like, oh
Oh,
my
yes.
goodness, by the time I go to the groceries with the baby and the newborn, my husband was somewhere else and we got milk.
Yes, yes, and you have to think, I mean, how much of a hassle you are saving, right? And also the gas that you're spending, going, driving, and all the time that you're saving is just,
Yeah.
it's worth it. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes, I mean,
When
I'm not
possible,
saying
right?
that you're gonna use it all the time, but sometimes it's totally worth it. It's very helpful.
Yes.
Because especially when you have babies and you have little ones, it's very difficult to get out of the house to go shopping, to go for grocery shopping. Very difficult.
Or now Target has free. So Instacart example, you have to pay, but Target could do a free
Yes,
pickup.
yes.
That's
And also Walmart Plus also,
mm,
and it has the same prices than in the store. With Instacart, it's always a little bit more expensive. Every item, they charge you more.
yeah, it's
Um, but Walmart is the same price that in Target too, the same price that in store, which is good.
bueno.
Yeah, we
Thank
have
you,
to shop
Rosa.
around to see which one is better.
Thank you, Rosa. Well, okay, so to close up with all this wonderful information that you shared with us, I wanted to ask you one last question. What has been, I guess, like the gift that homeschool has given you so far? You know, all this love and sacrifice and nurture and time dedicated to your children that trusting God, what gift has it revealed so far to you? What would be something very special that you're holding in your heart right now?
Well, I think that the unity that we have in our family now is something that we didn't have before homeschooling. And definitely, like I was telling you before, the bonding is one of the most important things. Sharing time with your family and growing really together. Um, you create that unity that is not common to see outside. And people notice it. People Sometimes people comes and ask, how do you do? Oh, you don't even notice. But yeah, people notice the unity and the bonding and the love within the family.
Yeah.
Um, I think that will be, the biggest remark that I can tell you. That's the biggest thing
Oh,
that I think we have. Yeah.
thank you.
I mean, just to give you an example, sometimes I ask my kids if they would like to go back to school. No, for nothing. They will cry. No, I want to go back to school. And it's just because, and I ask them, but why?
But
Why you don't want to?
their oldest ones, are they like in middle school? They be still considered
Yeah,
middle school?
the oldest one is in middle school,
Hmm.
and she's going to seventh grade now, and Alessia is in fifth, going to sixth, and Lucas is in third, going to fourth. And when I asked them why they don't want to go to school, and they said no, because we're gonna be away from each other. They
Oh,
don't want to be away from
they're
each
their
other, and
best
that for me
friends,
is like,
right?
we're gonna be away from each other. We don't want to be away from each other. And I'm like, okay, well,
That's
that's precious. That's
yeah,
very, very precious.
that's so sweet.
Mhm.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Rosa. I thank you for sharing your wisdom and your time with us.
No,
And I
thank
hope
you.
that it helps any other mom discerning to decide to homeschool or going through a hard homeschool season, that burnout season, or even if you're not homeschooling, I think all these tips that you shared with us can help
Exactly.
going through a hard season also for any mom. So
Hmm.
thank you so much. And I'm going to be praying for you also for your calling and keep going.
Thank you. And I'll keep you in my prayers as well,
Thank
of course.
you. Thank
But
you.
thank you so much for your invitation. Thank you for doing this. This is really a beautiful calling that you were
Oh, God bless you.
answering. Yes,
Yes, I'm
definitely.
hoping that moms, anyone going through a hard season, I realized how much I needed to hear these testimonies and how they've helped me. So I was like, oh my
Yes,
goodness, the more hopefully and someone who listens to this, it helps.
exactly. Exactly. Definitely.
Oh,
But
thank you,
thank
Rosa.
you.
Well, I hope to see you soon and I send
I
you
hope to see you soon.
a hug. God bless you.
God bless you. Take care.